Welcome back to another video. I wanted to make this on my favorite indicators to use on ThinkorSwim. I'm not too sure if these are specific or if the first indicator I'm going to show you is specific to ThinkorSwim. I know the second one isn't because I know a lot of larger institutional traders and mutual funds use that indicator. But the first indicator I'm showing you, it might be just exclusive to ThinkorSwim users. So before I get into major details about these indicators, if you learn anything from this video, drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more videos to come like this, more good, informative videos. So if you could please, it would help me out a lot. Just like the video, subscribe, and even check out the other videos I have on my channel because you might learn something else. So without getting into further details, let's move into the first indicator which I use for intraday charts. So on ThinkorSwim, there's a specific indicator I like using to know whether a stock is showing relative strength or relative weakness compared to the market. So what I do is I go to Studies up top, I go to Quick Study, and then all the way at the bottom you have a little tab that says Compare With. Now, what this does is it compares to whatever stock chart you're looking at, and you can compare it with any other stock or future or ETF, and you can compare them side by side, and you can see whether a stock or the market is showing relative strength or relative weakness compared to each other. So the chart we're looking at right now is Boeing. I'm going to go to Studies, Quick Study, Compare With, and I'm going to compare it with a custom symbol. And I want to compare it with /ES, the S&P future. So what it's going to do is it's going to load, and now it's going to load a little comparison line, and the purple line, which we can change in a minute, shows a line chart of the S&P, and then the candlestick chart colored shows Boeing's chart. So if we were to right click the comparison line, we can customize this to however we want. We could customize to, let's say, yellow, and instead of a line chart, we can make it even a candle chart. We can make it a bar chart. I like using a line chart. It just makes the chart look cleaner and it doesn't confuse the two charts with both candles. So what you can see with this is that if the market's selling off, you can see stocks that are strong compared to the market. And obviously Boeing is a major market leading stock, and if S&P is coming down, most likely Boeing is going to come down with it, right? So as you guys can see, let's not look at the left side of the chart, let's look at the right side of the chart. As you can see from where my cursor is on, Boeing has followed the S&P directly. It has a direct correlation with it. And what I mean by that is that every time the S&P comes up, Boeing comes up. Every little dip that comes down in the S&P, there's a dip down in Boeing. Every little pull up, Boeing comes up with it. But in the morning, what's interesting is the market was somewhat flat, right? As Boeing was coming up, the market was flat. So Boeing right there is showing relative strength. So you can take a long position. You could buy calls based off that judgment. Or you can wait for what happened was the market started selling off. I mean, as on the left axis, you can see here the price of the S&P was about 2,930. And the S&P went down to 2,906. So it went down almost 20-something points. But Boeing wasn't selling off. Boeing was holding. So as the S&P was selling off, Boeing held, and then as the S&P bounced after the lull hours between 11:30 12, you can see Boeing followed with the S&P, and then it followed its path, and we got a nice move higher. And the main point of this is to showing that Boeing showed relative strength. As the market was selling off, Boeing held, and then when finally the market did bounce, Boeing followed it. Now this could happen on the opposite side of the spectrum too. Let's say the market is shooting up, so I'm going to reverse Boeing. This is another good tip. If you put a negative sign in front of a stock symbol, you're going to see that same stock chart just flipped for the inverse. So this is good for psychology. If you're long biased in your brain, you want to take long trades, maybe flip this over to negative BA, because now you'll see the same Boeing chart but just reversed. So let's wait for data here. So what this is going to show is it's going to show its inverse. It's going to show the regular Boeing chart just completely inversed. And I'm not sure if you could see this on demand feature. So let's see. Let's wait for it to load. If it doesn't load, I'm just going to go back to the regular chart. Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to go back to the regular chart. Let's say the market was shooting up, but Boeing was coming down. Now what you can wait for maybe is the market to pull down, and then Boeing will flatten out and then make another move down, right? So this you could look at it the opposite side. You could look for stocks that are showing relative weakness. This is showing relative strength. If you want to look on the opposite side, you could find stocks that are showing weakness compared to the market. So this is just a good tool I like using. I like looking at this for major market leading stocks. I don't really do stocks that don't lead the market. I look for stocks that have a big market cap, have a big influence to the Dow, have a big influence to the S&P, stocks that have a big influence to the NASDAQ. So also what's cool about this too is that you could use it with futures. So if we want to look at NASDAQ, we could put NASDAQ and then we could put the S&P in the white line chart behind it. Now what I've noticed is that if the NASDAQ starts selling off while the S&P is maybe flat or coming up, that means maybe the S&P is going to come down. I find to be that NASDAQ is a really good forward-looking indicator to use to understand direction and trend for the next couple minutes or hours in the day. So what I mean by that is NASDAQ selling off and ES, the S&P, is holding up. I can expect maybe for a little pullback to follow on the S&P just because NASDAQ is selling off. So this is the good first indicator to use. Now we're going to go to the second indicator I like using, and like I said, this is normal on all different programs because I know a lot of institutions use this, and I know a lot of mutual funds and big money uses this. So we're going to go to quick study, we're going to go to add study, we're going to go to market strength studies, and all the way down we're going to have VWAP. Now what VWAP is, it's volume weighted average price. And what that means is it sums the price and it multiplies that by the total volume and then it divides it by volume. Now you're going to see all these lines in my charts, and I know some of you guys probably use VWAP. Let's go back to live trading here. I know some of you guys probably use VWAP already, but it's just a good tool to know about. It's a good tool to know how it's calculated, and it's a good tool to have on your charts because, like I said, a lot of institutions and mutual funds use this. So, VWAP is the sum of all prices traded so far multiplied by how many shares have been traded, and then you divide that by the total volume. And a rule of thumb is if you're below VWAP, it's bearish, and if you're above VWAP, it is bullish. And what's important to understand is the slope of VWAP. Now, really fast, you have three bands with VWAP. You have the upper band, middle band, and then you have the lower band. The upper band is going to act as resistance, as you see here. We came up, we were flat at the open, but it acted as resistance. And then look what happened. Came down, broke below middle VWAP. We're below it here, so I'm going to mark where we're at. Right here, we're below, bearish, we're below it, and then look what happens. We break the lower day, we break support, because like I said, the lower band will act as support. We break support, and look what happens. We sell off, we come down, it acts as support the whole time, and then we bounce from there. And then look where we bounce, right? This is why I use VWAP, and this is where I take a lot of trades. I take a lot of trades off VWAP rejections, and I take a lot of trades off VWAP bounces, which you're going to see in a minute. So we came back, we rejected off VWAP. What I do is that I'll get a short position here, I'll buy puts or I'll buy the shares. I'm an options trader, so I really just buy puts. And then I'll put my stop loss maybe a couple cents above VWAP after it rejected, but I wait for a rejection first. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It can come above VWAP, but I give it a rule of thumb of about a couple cents, maybe 50 cents, $1 maybe above VWAP. And I'll just buy a starter position here with room to add up if it comes above it. So it doesn't have to reject it perfectly, as you guys are going to see right here. We came above it, but we rejected it. We really never traded above it, we never based above it, and we never held value above it. It's important to hold value above it because that just shows now the trend is going to start changing. We're above it, we hold value above it, and the traders think it's a fair price. VWAP is a good indicator because it determines price and volume. Those are two important things. And it determines volume not based on the time of the candlestick, but it bases volume on the total amount of time that has traded so far today compared to the price of shares, the sum of total price per shares. You don't have to know that because this program does it for you automatically, but I just use them as support and resistance levels, and it's important to watch the level 2 at these levels because sometimes you'll see big buy orders or big sell orders at a certain VWAP band. If you go to edit study, you can take off the upper band and lower band. I have some charts with them on and I have some charts with them off. So to turn them off, you're just going to hit show plot on the upper and lower band. Click it and make sure it's unchecked. And now you'll just have a middle VWAP. I use this on my smaller time frame charts, and then my little larger time frame charts, I'll put the upper and lower bands on. But it's just a fair price what traders think VWAP is. It's a fair trading price. So we're below it, I'm bearish. We're above it, I'm bullish. I look for these rejections and I look for bounces to buy puts or calls, depending on a bounce or a rejection. So let's go back to that Boeing trade, and this is why we use both these indicators in conjunction with each other. So we have VWAP here. I'm going to go to quick studies. I'm going to add a study. I'm going to go to compare with, and I'm just going to use SPX. I'm going to use the S&P 500. I'm going to make this line yellow. I'm going to make this line actually white again. So now we have VWAP. And you know what? I'm going to add the upper band just to illustrate this point because I'm sure there was a resistance or a support with the upper band. Okay, perfect. So now you have a lot of lines in your chart. The more lines you have, the more confused you're going to be. And you should just, it's going to overwhelm you in your head, I think. Because it definitely overwhelms me once I see a lot of lines behind the chart. So it's important to not use this as a main trading chart, but just to use this maybe on a side monitor so you can judge and you can be aware of certain plays that have these two indicators combined with each other. So, like I said, we're back to this Boeing chart. Market was selling off. Boeing was holding, right? Yeah, we sold off maybe a little bit, but Boeing was holding. Look what happens. Boeing held VWAP as the S&P was selling off. This is bullish. I'm going to remove S&P because you guys understand it was selling off. S&P sold off. Boeing held VWAP, held the middle VWAP line, came up. Look where we rejected. We rejected upper band. That's a take profit point. We rejected again, upper band. That's a take profit point. Again, upper band, take profit point. And then look, for the rest of the day, until close, we never closed above that upper VWAP band. So we saw market selling off, Boeing holding, held VWAP. I would have got long somewhere in this area. And yeah, we made support here. So if it was after this price level, I would have put my stop loss somewhere below this point because if it went below this level, I would have been stopped out. My trade would have been proved to me that it was wrong, and I would have had a good risk to reward. If you get long somewhere here and the stock comes down maybe $1, that's a good risk reward compared to $6, $7 we got on the upside. So I'm comfortable taking this trade 8 out of the 10 times. This is going to be a good trade. It's a high probability setup. And we got double confirmation because the market was selling off and Boeing showed relative strength. So if you learned anything from this video, like I said, please subscribe. There will be more videos like this. Drop a comment if you have any questions. And just like this video. It helps me out much more than you guys would ever know. Thank you.